We are by far the strongest military in the world. Going into Iran would be a very easy decision, as I said before, be very easy, the easiest thing. Most people thought I would go in within 2 seconds, but plenty of time, plenty of time. I think I'm showing great restraint.
Right, US President Donald Trump there just hours after his Secretary of Defense announced the deployment of additional US troops to Saudi Arabia and right here in the United Arab Emirates. It follows last week's Saudi oil attack, which the US blames on Iran. Tehran continues to deny this claim, with President Hassan Rouhani saying today, and I quote, anywhere the Americans and our regional enemies appeared as players, they created insecurity. Well, Ramin Asgard is a highly decorated US Foreign Service Office veteran, previously working as the director of the Iran Regional Presence Office here in the UAE and senior foreign policy advisor to the US Central Command. It's a pleasure to have you on. Donald Trump saying that he is exercising great restraint, but in saying that, the US and the Saudi Arabians suggesting that Iran was behind this attack. The Iranians say nothing of the sort. Where does this go next?
Thank you, Becky. Thank you for having me. I think that the president is exercising restraint. I mean, for a long period of time, you've been in this region. The go-to answer was military. The go-to answer was some sort of response, a kinetic response. At this point, the president is still measuring his options, but he's still interested in increasing leverage, and he's leaving the door open for diplomacy. This has not been necessarily the way that it was expected to turn out. And as far as the Saudi claims and the attack on Saudi Arabia, those are being pursued. And if they lead to a certain direction, the president may have to take a stand in support of an ally.
There are those that say that having beat the drum with regard Iran, and that being other Gulf states, including the UAE and Saudi Arabia specifically, there is now a kind of sense of sort of, you know, having the Americans doing their bidding at this point. You hear talk of de-escalation here.
Yes.
Not necessarily hearing that from the Saudis. How would you describe the position with regard to the UAE and Saudi Arabia at present?
I think the UAE and Saudi Arabia, who forged a great deal of security cooperation through the Yemen conflict, particularly, have become a little bit different. I think the Emiratis have become a little bit more pragmatic in the way that they're looking at this issue. And the Saudis continue, I think, to look at this issue from a very, very adversarial perspective. And that's understandable, given that they've just been attacked. They're certainly not going to soften their views and take a more pragmatic view on how Iran should be handled right after an attack on their territory.
In a statement, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said, and I quote, "Americans are weary of war and have no interest in entering another Middle East conflict, particularly on behalf of Saudi Arabia. They will not stand by while the president undermines our security and jeopardizes the lives of our brave service members." You previously served as a senior foreign policy advisor to General James Mattis, who left his position, of course, as US Secretary of Defense late last year after President Trump announced he would pull troops from Syria. Do you agree with, given what we've just been discussing, with the US sending more troops to this region?
That the U.S. sending more troops to the region to bolster Saudi Arabia was a visible symbol that the U.S. is going to stand with its allies. Taking concentrated military measures to counter Iran is a much bigger commitment. And as you pointed out, the polling, particularly among the voters who are the base for President Trump, is very much against the idea of another overseas military conflict and getting the U.S. knee-deep in another, particularly in this region, after seeing what has gone on over the last 2 decades. So I think President Trump is very attuned to his base, If there's one thing you can definitely say about President Trump is he keeps attuned to the wishes of his base and his constituency, and they do not want another military conflict. They want the United States to be perceived as strong. They want the United States to be perceived as a leader, but not necessarily through the military channel.
Donald Trump's line on all of this is a diplomatic solution should not be seen as a position of weakness. It should be seen as a position of strength, speaking to his base. Thank you, sir, for joining us today live from Abu Dhabi. This is Connect World.